From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and Akashvani, this is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell in London, and I have to say the miserable February rain has really been brightened by the men's T20 World Cup. I think it's been a really compelling tournament, so many stories emanating from it, which we'll get into a few of them in the show this week.
Hello, Jim Maxwell from Sydney. I'm enjoying the women's cricket between Australia and India. And what's men's... Sheffield Shield's still on, yes. So we're excited about that.
Don't mention the T20.
Well, I'm glad that some Australians doing well against India this point in time, Jim. More on the T20 later. Of course, in India, it's all about the T20 as it moves into the second phase, the Super 8s. Well, I've just returned from Rajasthan after playing some tennis, and I'm really happy to be back home in Bangalore in time for our big annual golf league at our club, which takes it over for a couple of months.
Well, good to be here with you both, and we are going to start with the men's T20 World Cup, and specifically the T20 World Cup match with the biggest build-up of all. It was the on-off saga that at one point looked like it might threaten the stability of cricket's entire ecosystem until Pakistan relented on their original decision to boycott their fixture against India. In the end, there were no handshakes or really any interaction between the players, and India's men continued their recent dominance with a comfortable 61-run victory. And given all of that, Michael Atherton wrote in the London Times this week that India versus Pakistan has become a miserable spectacle. Jim, Charu, what do you say to that? Charu, is it a miserable spectacle now because of everything that comes along with it?
Well, miserable might be taking it a step too far, but I can understand the sentiment because there's so much hype and there's so much build-up and uncertainty surrounding it, so much news and so many stories. And then, of course, if you end up with a damp squib, you wonder what it was all about anyway. So, yeah, I think the hype is now overtaking the contest between the two, and the rest of the world is being unwittingly, or perhaps willingly because of the media, drawn into this whole drama. And there's much more drama now than contest. So I can understand what Michael Atherton might have gone through, but possibly not miserable, not yet anyway.
Well, Pakistan, I think the record's 8-1 India, isn't it, in the more recent T20s they've played. So as a contest, it's not what it was when Javed Miandad and the rest of them were playing in those occasional test matches, certainly against India. We'd like to see that happen again, but unfortunately Pakistan have lost the plot in terms of administration. Even the playing of the game is pretty ordinary at the moment, very mediocre. I suppose the other side of it is the broadcast politics of something like this T20 World Cup, and that's where they're saying the money is going to come from having that game. So just as well they've had it, but I don't think they'll be having it again in the Super 8s. We'll see what happens. But I think if Pakistan would be down at 6, 7, 8 in the list at the moment.
Given what we know about the economic reality of the fixture and what had to go into making it happen, if it is becoming a miserable spectacle, at least being very one-sided on the field, it's something of a necessary miserable spectacle because it does bankroll the game and it doesn't diminish the number of eyeballs that are still drawn to it, political hype or non-political hype. But I went on social media just before the match to ask just how fans of both India and Pakistan were feeling, given, everything that had happened in the build-up. And the reaction was kind of mixed. I'll read you out just a couple of the responses. Pravesh said, yes, it has diminished a bit, but more to do with Pakistan not being as good or as competitive as they used to be. It's become more one-sided, which is never fun. Recent events have made it more tiresome, in a sense, and that was reflected a little bit in what a few other people said as well. Amitava says India-Pakistan contests were really competitive in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. Last 10 years it has been one-sided. For me, these days, it's just like any other game and the match has no bearing on the World Cup. Both teams go through to Super 8s. Sam Matodra said it shouldn't happen. Just place India and Pakistan in separate groups next time. Well, that kind of comes back to the broadcasting and the money and the advertising and the eyeballs, doesn't it? Rahul says politics have made this game a mess. Shame on us, and points out that he's Indian. Adil said the most geopolitically overhyped match of the tournament, which is difficult to disagree in. And Praful India versus USA was more interesting than Sunday's match, which is kind of true as well. There's been so many incredible performances by the associates. But, I mean, Charu, people were still watching though, weren't they? I mean, in India, despite all of this, and there might be a little bit of, should we say, just a little bit of dulling of the senses in some regards, but it didn't stop people tuning in.
Well, yes, I think there's a very small percentage that get dulled, but the largest number is still very invested in terms of time, effort, energy into watching an India-Pakistan match. It does create a lot of noise, and of course this time a lot more because of the uncertainty. But at any tournament, anywhere, the India-Pakistan match is guaranteed to be a sellout, and that is the level of interest that still exists for various reasons. The rivalry itself is not what it was, but I think due to a much larger set of reasons, it's still a very attractive watch because, for starters, you've got 2 billion people potentially viewing the match or having interest in the match. That's just a huge number, wherever, whenever. And there's so much similarity between the two and yet so many differences that it's almost like playing against our own, but people who've gone in different directions. They come back on the cricket field, they play. In the past, too, there was, and these guys, by the way, you read out some of those comments, are not wrong at all. Most of them have made some, very understandable comment. I think Amitabh was quite correct that from, in fact, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, it was not even so even. Pakistan was possibly ahead, and India were the underdogs. And then, of course, things have changed since the new millennium completely to dull the contest, but not the spectacle.
Yeah, although I wonder, for a neutral watching it, and you hope to watch for the spectacle of the match, Jim, do you find, do you think the neutrals are perhaps tuning in with almost a bit of a macabre sense of watching it for some controversial moments, as opposed to tuning in for a brilliant cricketing spectacle? Will they shake hands, will they not, this kind of thing?
Oh, yes, I suppose so. I think we're kind of used to that for the time being, and until someone pushes out the olive branch or whatever. But I'm actually following it from afar, and most of the games are on live in Australia overnight, so you tend to look at the highlights the next day. But I've noticed pretty good crowds for matches involving the so-called minnows, and they've performed above expectation, maybe because a lot of their players are playing franchise T20 cricket, and they've got more experience than their record would suggest. So I think it's worked pretty well across the board, but it's disappointing to have this aspect of the tournament being so downgraded. But what we have seen has been worthwhile, beginning with, as you mentioned, the United States giving India a bit of a touch-up before they lost to them in the opening game. And as we was talking about last week, nothing could have been more exciting than that match between South Africa and Afghanistan, which went to a second super over. So I think it's held up pretty well.
And this tournament in particular, I think really has been so uplifting because of the variety of stories that we've seen. And I just wonder, Jim and Charu, like if you had to pick out, and you've mentioned a couple, Jim, but you picked out something that's maybe your favourite moment or match of the tournament, being Blessing Mazharibani being the star for Zimbabwe against Australia, Italy and the joy that we saw when they won their first ever World Cup match, Nepal getting their first win in 12 years over Scotland. I really got drawn into that match. It was a game of no consequence for the qualification in the tournament, but there was so much joy amongst the Nepalese fans, and that for me, it just sort of encapsulated why this T20 World Cup is so refreshing. It was a match that fluctuated so much, and gosh, the moniker the Cardigan kids certainly lived up to their name again. Poor old Stuart Law, the coach, was going through all the roller coaster of emotions in the dugout. But what might you two pick out as perhaps, Charu, come to you for a favourite, most uplifting moment?
Well, I certainly have a lot of heart and feel for Nepal cricket, having been there to do some cricket. And what a story it would have been had they just got those 4 runs more against England. That was the biggest story. And they were so close against a country that's played cricket for 300 years that, oh my goodness. But failing that was a big problem for them. But of course, winning against Scotland and the kind of aggression they won with was magnificent. Yet may I single out Yuvraj Samra from Canada, his 100 in only, 65 against New Zealand. Yeah. That takes a lot of getting. They don't play that much cricket at all. And the additional story that he was named after Yuvraj Singh, which is a wonderful little angle to the whole story. But getting 100 against New Zealand, terrific side. They're in the Super 8s, and Yuvraj comes, of course, they lost a match, but whenever, it takes a lot to get 100 in a T20. And Yuvraj, I think that performance was just second to none.
Youngest ever cricketer to hit 100 in a men's World Cup match, ODI or T20.
Jim?
Oh, Australia's win over Ireland was the highlight of the tournament. No doubt about it.
We'll let you have that. Well, yeah, I think it's been a really uplifting tournament, and we could still have, more to come during these Super 8. So bring it on, I say. Now, finally on Stumped, could the Big Bash be on the move for one match only? Well, reports emerging from Australia have suggested that the competition could be set to stage the opening match of the season not in Sydney, Melbourne or Perth, but in India. Jim, how likely is this to happen? And give us a bit more of the why as well.
Well, I'm not sure. We know that the Indian corporates have been moving around and trying to do some business with Cricket Australia in terms of outright or part ownership of the BBL teams. And there's been a bit of a set against this from a number of the states, I need to tell you, in our great federated system. And so it's not a fait accompli that this is going to occur. Eventually something will happen. But I haven't heard much about this idea, but it sounds like a pretty good one, because if you think of the timing, you could have this IPL game or BBL game, in the middle of the day, which would be in the evening here. So it's, and other than that, I'm not aware of any other motivation for it, than the fact that you'd have to say that India is the home of T20 cricket, certainly at a franchise level. Charu might have more of a clue as to the motivation for it.
Well, I must confess, it's caught me by surprise as well. But I say, why not? The biggest roadblock could really be the fact that there are no Indians playing in any of these big leagues outside. That's the Indian men, of course. And unless that changes, very little is likely to change in terms of Indian interest in, or spectator or viewer interest in leagues away from the IPL. So I don't see that changing, because we've discussed it enough times on Stump that if there are Indian players that go out and play these other leagues, then the value of the IPL may be diluted. And that's certainly something the IPL would not want. But maybe to increase awareness of the extremely high standard of the BBL at any rate. That certainly could be, a visibility thing here in India in terms of optics. It's a really high-grade event. And if there are sponsors and others, there's a lot of trade, by the way, and attempts going on between Australia and India that I'm aware of as well, to just increase business, and certainly through cricket, and why not through cricket? So it could be a huge PR opportunity as well, just to get a whole lot of Australians here in India, talk cricket, and maybe interest a whole lot of local sponsors to try and either tie up with the BBL or provide a lovely platform for potential owners or part owners of BBL, should that angle open up later. Although I don't quite know what the structure of the BBL ownership situation is. But if there is scope, then the game is certainly doing well enough, or should I say the people surrounding the game are certainly doing well enough here in India to perhaps increase the possibility of their commercial interest in the BBL, having brought just that one match here for visibility. So, there is the potential high side, although the kind of expense for just one match to be held 5,000 miles away, I'm not so sure it's commercially a fabulous decision, but maybe potentially so.
Yeah, I think it was two BBL executives who have been over and reported to have been in Chennai, around the Chepauk Stadium. I think, is it the rainy season in Chennai in December? Charu, would that play into it? And also, how do you think Indian fans would flock to watch two Big Bash teams playing against each other?
Well, it would take a little bit of promotion for sure, but I think Indian grounds are not that large. 35,000 people in Chennai surely would turn up for a match that features some of the bigger names in world cricket, despite the fact there are no Indian names in those two teams. And yes, in terms of the weather, there are two monsoons in India. The southwest, which is the big one, which is, end May, June, July, August, September. And then, of course, there's a northeast monsoon, which is largely Chennai-oriented, which is, in fact, December, January. But one can get lucky. You must have a reserve day and there are spells of rain in the winter in Chennai as well. But I can understand Chennai because one, it's the closest to Australia, and two, if you're playing there, you've got to play in the Indian winter, the northern hemisphere winter. Otherwise, I'm sure BBL players might not be able to take that one match even. It's very hot.
It's still a long way to fly, Jim, for one match. It play havoc with the rest of the schedule, the fixtures, surely, because you'd need so much time either side of that one match. But the NRL did it, didn't they, in Australia? Is that right? They took a match to Vegas? And was that
They're about to do it again to start the season. I don't know how successful that's been, but it does remind me of the early days of T20 when they used to have this playoff, I think for just 2 years, between the top teams in the various franchises would play off against each other. You remember that? They played in South Africa once, I think. So like maybe we're heading towards that, having the World League of Franchises in T20. That's going to be the next big thing, is it?
Well, good luck finding a slot in the calendar. Good luck finding a slot in the calendar for that.
Yeah, well, this is, as I said to some people last night, the biggest threat to Test cricket is not that people don't like it or don't want it, is there's no room in the calendar the way we're going to stage it.
Yep, that is a fair point. Well, look, before we go on Stumped this week, we're going to give a Stumped salute to Smriti Mandana because she has been named BBC Indian Sportswoman of the Year. And in the 6 years of the award, it's the first time that it's gone to a cricketer. Mandana was chosen by a distinguished panel comprising the Grand Slam tennis champion Leander Paes, Paralympic medalist Deepa Malik and World Championship long jump medalist Andrew Bobby George. So big congratulations to Smriti on what is an historic achievement. Well, that's it for this edition of Stumped on Akashvani. Thanks for listening. Give us a follow on X if you can. We're at BBCWS Sports. And to flag any message to us, use the hashtag BBC Stumped. And check us out on YouTube as well by going to the BBC World Service on YouTube. Jim and Charu, thanks to you. Keep enjoying the T20 World Cup. Bye-bye for now.
Stumped is a BBC Sport production for the BBC World Service in association with ABC and Akashvani.